Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree Net Podcast. The Third Degree Net Podcast.
Howdy, y'all. This is Eddie Middlebrook, and I'm Dan Crook's biggest fan. Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Friday, May 20th, America's Strikers Ricardo Pepe and Jesus Ferreira will be in store signing autographs from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Stop in, shop for some fresh FC Dallas USA gear, and leave with Pepe and Ferreira's autograph. And remember, when you shop soccer90.com as a listener of Third Degree, you receive 20% off your order when you use the promo code Third Degree.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast, numero uno seis dos, I am told. Hi, I'm Peter, and as always, joined by my two Dallas soccer talking buddies. First off, condolences to Dan Crook as his Hatters' dreams of Premier League glory came crashing down earlier this week. Sorry, Dan.
Wow, the tears are coming back now. Jesus.
Did you cry?
No, I definitely had a half an hour where I was really pissed off.
That was a lot of fun to watch, and every time I get to this point of the championship season, I look at myself and I go, why am I not watching more championship soccer over the course of a season? Because those playoff games are so nutty good.
Oh, it's the best. It's I think someone did a study a few years ago, and they worked out it was the most competitive division in world soccer.
Yeah, it's I watch it and I look and I think to myself, this is probably a tick higher than your average MLS game, not necessarily the playoffs, but you know what I'm talking about, just championship soccer. There's some equitableness between those two leagues, and maybe you'll disagree with me on that, Dan. I don't know, but it is fun to watch, and I was really rooting for your team because I didn't realize just how far off the salary race they are with everybody else at the top of the championship, and the odds of them getting as far as they had just seemed ridiculous. They had gotten as far as they did.
Second smallest wage budget in the division, which is still significantly more than most MLS teams.
Yeah, true. Okay. Very good. Well, sorry, dude. That must have been heartbreaking.
It was a difficult one, but, if you'd have said mid-table at the start of the year, everyone would have bit your arm off. Never mind, hey, 90 minutes away from Wembley. All
right. Well, there's always next season, isn't there, sir?
Unless you're Barnsley and lose Daryl DK and then get relegated the season after, yeah.
All right. And then now time to introduce you to your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of thirddegree.net, the good Buzz Carrick. Buzz, your team is solidly in the Premiership and likely a contender for next season.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to go all the way to contender, but they're definitely going to be in the top half, I would assume, and hopefully making a shot for some of those bottom, what do you call them, fruitcake?
Well, the fruitcake cup is only for fourth place.
Okay. I'll take sixth. I'll be happy to get some kind of European something. That'd be fun.
You'd like to do road trips to Iceland and Azerbaijan?
It's not like I'm going to go. I'm just going to watch it on TV. But yeah.
I do have to ask before we get into all things FC Dallas Curious, where did you come up with the fruitcake cup and all that? I was listening to the kick around while driving back from Rockwell a couple of weeks ago, and you were talking about United not wanting it, and I'm like, what is this?
It's based on the fact that for the last 2 months, every time we felt like we had a grasp on who was going to be the likely fourth place team in the Premier League, meaning they were going to grab the last Champions League spot, they would blow it the next week and somebody else would take it. And it was this kind of ongoing thing between it started off between Manchester United, Arsenal, Spurs, and West Ham, and there was this kind of revolving door of people sitting in that spot over the course of several weeks. And the joke became fourth place feels like it's fruitcake. Nobody likes to get a fruitcake on Christmas, but somebody's going to get it and they're not going to like it. And that's just how that competition for that place felt like it was going towards the end of the season, because everybody would just blow it the week after they had gotten into the spot.
Well, in that case, thank you for sharing my disdain about weddings in the United Kingdom always having a fruitcake.
It's the most awful baked good ever, isn't it?
Somebody gave me a fruitcake for my birthday once as a teenager, and I told them to piss off.
Yeah, because they hated you. That's why they did that.
Apparently, yeah.
Fruitcake is a weird baked good, yes. But now it appears that Spurs have earned it. They've won a lot of games in a row and done well for themselves, so now they'll get the Champions League glory.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I think by the time anyone gets to this stage of the podcast, they will have heard the Soccer 90 promotion for the tomorrow's signing. And I know you know this, Peter, that Pepe and Jesus are going to be there from noon to 2. I just wanted to mention that specifically. Pepe is noon to 1 and Jesus is 1 to 2. So if you want your Choose Jesus shirt signed, you need to go between 1 and 2. If you want to take your El Tren shirt to get it signed, you'll need to go between noon and 1.
That was a weird non sequitur right in the middle of the conversation about the fruitcake cup.
Well, it seemed like you were winding up the fruitcake cup, and since nobody wants fruitcake, but people might actually want Jesus and Pepe's autographs tomorrow.
Yeah. That's really cool. We tried really hard to get Pepe to come on the show Saturday, and his people didn't seem like he was ready to do media like that. So if you want to see him, go see him at the Soccer 90 joint.
Ambush, Peter. Just go up there with your recorder.
As Dan has now anointed it, by the way, this has got to be their new famous slogan: America's favorite soccer store.
Yeah, honestly.
They need to pay you for that one, Dan. I love that. America, because I'm going to start referring to that since they're the sponsor of the kick around.
Yeah.
America's soccer store.
They can pull in a Luton shirt for me. That would be good enough.
All right. Well, speaking of emotions, boy, if you are a fan of Dallas, you've experienced the extreme range of emotions. We start off with a fantastic result going to L.A. at the other best defensive team in the league, putting 3 on them straight away and holding them to 1, winning in L.A. 3-1, which felt like a great thing, only to then go to Vancouver, the worst team in the league that had only previously won twice at home all season, and losing to the worst team in the league in the worst of possible ways. And Buzz, I need to know from you, which of those results are more indicative of what FC Dallas really is?
Well, that's a good question. I think the current version of FC Dallas generally plays more like they played in Vancouver. The Galaxy win, which was super, super nice, was a very aggressive mid to low block with a very aggressive counterattack. Now, they only do that sometimes, not even all the time on the road, because clearly they didn't in Vancouver. They only do that every once in a while on the road. So that style is unlike they usually play. So I think actually the LA win is obviously a bigger deal. I mean, how many times has Dallas won in LA, especially against the Galaxy? I bet it's less than 5 in the history of the club. I say that without looking. But
say so less than 10, and it'll still sound impressive, and you're probably more correct. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they play there every year, obviously, because they're in the West. But
sure,
10 would be 500 out there. There's no way. It's got to be less than like 5 or 6. I would bet you that, because LA is generally really good, and it's been generally very hard to win on the road. So like, I remember games where they've just got absolutely trucked at the Galaxy. So to win, to beat them handily back that way, and that game really felt like an Oscar Pereira style game, not a Nico Aceves type game. So the Vancouver game, loss aside, is more typical of how the team plays. So that's a long way of saying that. It's a complicated answer, but that's true. The Vancouver game is more like the real actual FC Dallas team.
Okay. So I think we have to, before we get into the specifics of each of the games, the one overriding factor was the surprise news that Alan Velasco, Martin Paz, and Martinez, the center back, were all suddenly not available to the mysterious health and safety protocols,
Yeah.
which essentially just tells us that they tested positive for COVID. Is that what?
No,
Oh.
not necessarily.
Oh,
it just
okay.
it can even be
Herpes?
something. It can be something non-COVID related. It can be other
Herpes.
sicknesses theoretically. There's like 5 things it can be. One is that yes, you actually are positive for COVID. 2 is that you participate in what they call reckless behavior, which I might say something like you went to a party in the Hollywood Hills with 100 other people. That's reckless behavior. That can get you on the list, even if you don't catch it. 3 is a false positive test. So you don't have it, but a test for a day said you did, and so you have to wait. 4 is a test that is non-conclusive. Again, puts you on the list. 5 is contact with a individual who is known to be positive. So you have to quarantine even if you don't catch it, just because you had contact, because it takes 5 days for it to show up, remember, for you once you get
The
exposed.
Rito Ziegler rule.
Yeah. And then 6 is like you could have the flu, like a regular old flu. So
Right.
we don't know what any of these guys have. Did one of them do something wrong and then go to lunch with the other? It's slightly weird that 2 of them were on the thing first and then Velasco showed up on the day of. So maybe like he was like, we're guessing as to what it all
right.
is. It's COVID related, but none of them actually be sick. You still have to quarantine if you were exposed, even if you don't catch it. So
All right, I wanted to make a monkeypox joke in there, but I won't, because the one thing that you said in there about reckless behavior suddenly made me ask the question. So is attending a Dallas Mavericks playoff game at the AAC with a bunch of other people without a mask, is that deemed reckless behavior?
it probably depends on whether you broke certain protocols. Like there's all these complicated protocols for people that are athletes like this, and reckless behavior at a Mavericks game. If you're only with the people that you are in your team or your PR people, and you only meet like a couple of Mavericks who are also in an isolated sort of bubble type environment, you're probably fine. Now, if you went out into the plaza and stood there and signed 100 autographs with 100 people 6 feet away from you or less, that would be reckless behavior. So I'm just loosely defining it myself. That somehow the league has defined all these things. It's not likely that they're going to get you on the reckless behavior one unless you do something really dumb these days, like stage dive or something.
I ask because there is a lot of social media photography of Martin Paz at multiple Dallas Mavericks games over the last couple of weeks, both in crowds and in the suites and with his girlfriend and with his friends. And look, I don't have an issue with it, but I just wonder if if that qualifies as reckless behavior.
It certainly could. I don't know the exact terms, but Paxton and Edwin went to games, but they were with the authorized sort of visit from the FC Dallas versus like going on your own. Or maybe it's not even that. Maybe just as purely hypothetical, fictional idea. Maybe Martin Paz's girlfriend caught COVID, and then Martin went to lunch with Martinez, and then Martinez went to lunch with Velasco, and all of a sudden you got 3 guys out really quickly. So, again, we don't actually know that they're sick or not, but bottom line is they had to sit out a week, basically, for whatever reason, either exposed or they actually got. At this point, you assume they're all vaccinated, right? Or you probably. Now, for sure, anyone that went to Canada is, because you can't go to Canada without being vaccinated. There have been cases where people have been left behind on health and safety protocol because they weren't vaccinated and they couldn't even get into Canada. So again, we would be guessing on any reason why those 3 guys are on there. Likely to get into the country and to play for FC Dallas and be inside their bubble, you would have to be vaccinated by this point, I would imagine.
Well, they're all 3 foreigners, and so I would assume it's probably not a vaccination issue.
I wouldn't think so either, but that's the thing, is like we
Paz
really have no idea.
definitely wasn't, because he posted something about coming out of quarantine.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so in their place was Tafare, Jimmy Maurer, and Hot Air Obrion. And surprise, surprise, Dan Crook, they went to L.A., and I'll be damned if they didn't put together a nice little win, and you had the hottest of sports opinions. I loved your opinion that you posted in your review of the game. I quote you, Dan Crook. Quote, do I think Hot Air Obrion is a better footballer than Alan Velasco? Absolutely not. But I also don't think FC Dallas scores the early opener or has Chase Gaspar on the ropes all game in LA or the goal in Vancouver with Velasco in this lineup. That is some stout hot sports opinion right there, Mr. Crook.
Well, we talk about the verticality of the team so much, and over the past years, we complained about what's his name, the useless Belgian guy.
Roland Lamar or Giannis?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
The list is quite long, Dan, when it comes to wingers, international wingers on this team. Yeah. Take your pick, my friend.
Yeah, we talk so much about Roland Lamar kind of like unbalancing the team, where you've got like a pacey forward, pacey winger, and then some guy kind of off, sticking his finger up his ass, and hogging the ball. Now, I'm not saying that Velasco is necessarily doing that, but Velasco is very much I get the ball and then I try and run with it. And then I probably get dispossessed, but once a game, there's a good chance of something good happening. Well, those two games, and specifically the goals we're talking about, and the way they took on Chase Gaspar, was all about getting pace up the inside. That's not Velasco's game. That's not Velasco's role in the team. He has that kind of free roll from the left, where where Areola and Jesus kind of just fill around him. So I just don't think that those opportunities come with Velasco in the team as much as they did with Obrian.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the harder question. Is Dallas better with Obrian than they are with Velasco?
I don't know, man. That's tough. I think Obrian's game suits what FC Dallas is doing a little bit better.
Which is what? Being like they play better when they're vertical and more direct?
They certainly create more chances that way.
Well, that's disappointing considering you spent almost $8 million on the little Argentinian, isn't it? When you already had Javier Obrian in your pocket.
He'll come great. He doesn't look after the ball particularly well. He's kind of a bit of a black hole in the attack, and when he can look after the ball and turn those like one every 15 possessions turns into a really nice pass or a really nice run into something like one every 5, everyone's going to be absolutely celebrating him. It'll be, you can say the same about Mauro Diaz. His first 6 months, you'd be like, really, this guy was the guy? And then it kind of clicked. He got a little bit better at keeping the ball and looking after it and producing.
Buzz, I'm fascinated to know your opinion to this topic.
Well, let me first say that the way you pronounced his name a minute ago, it triggered in my head a new secondary nickname for him. He's now going to be Hot Air Obrian as a new nickname, or O'Brien, as Kobe Jones called him on the podcast.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, the whole game. I think that it's that Obrian provides a unique ability among the wings, and even Jesus at forward, of that direct over-the-top pace. And given that this particular coach likes to micromanage matchups and likes to micromanage tactical changes, you can just look at these two games, for example, as very, very different stylistically types of tactical plays and setups, defensively, offensively, everything. Ordinarily, Velasco gives you an alternative style to Obrian and also to Areola, too. So I think it's actually being really nice that this coach will be able to mix and match potentially those three players. And now probably Velasco and Areola are going to be your first two choices, but Obrian certainly has shown, and there's going to be call-ups for Areola coming up. Obrian has certainly shown that he has something he can bring to the table. There are deficiencies, but again, just like he has deficiencies, Velasco does too. Velasco, because they give him freedom, you never know where he's going to pop up on the outside or the inside. And Paxton, for example, has to compensate for that. And he has to constantly switch and drift inside, outside to match up the opposite of what Velasco's doing. So just like when you have to compensate for that guy, when Obrian's in, he plays differently, and you have to compensate for that. And this coaching staff is good enough to deal with that. And the change of pace for Obrian is a fantastic tool. Do I think they're better with him starting? No, but I think that there's tools that you can use there that can put a team on its heels, that can give you an attack in a way they didn't expect. And I think collectively this club is better because it has all those guys and has all those different options. I think this team under this coach is well past the idea that there's just 11 starters. I think there's like 14 starters, and he's picking 11 of them any given game, depending on what the scenarios are going to be, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And in watching these two games with Hader, it dawned on me that we are seeing a vastly improved player from last season.
Yeah,
can we,
sure.
Dan, would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. He actually, doesn't just pick and choose when to get involved in defense now.
Right.
He's like, wait, I'm supposed to do this. I will do this.
The opening goal in LA is a great example. Not only, Emma's got a big role in this because Emma plays a very smart and early pass to Hader, but Hader makes a fantastic run in the first place and then makes the right decision to square the ball. And that's fundamentally different than what we've seen out of this guy. So here's my question to either one of you. You can answer. Is the improvement in Hader just simply the fact that it's the Oscar Pereira, it takes a South American a full season to get acclimated to Major League Soccer? Or two, is it the difference between Lucci and Nico?
I'll say that it's mostly the system. Now, whether Nico is communicating better what he wants Oberon to do or not, I probably would lean to the idea that he is, but it's more about, to me, the idea that under Lucci, the outside backs were flying, attacking modern outside backs. Both of them were often going at the same time. And part of the responsibility of a winger under Lucci was that when that happens and they turn it over, sometimes you're the man back and you got to get all the way back and you got to be able to play. And that's not Oberon's game. Well, under Nico, we don't have these modern flying outside backs. We have Ima Tumasi, who does tend to go forward fairly well. Nanu tends to go forward fairly well, but they both go forward under control. They often are supporting underneath in the gap that the 8 is vacating because the 8's going into the box. Or they might be supporting wide and underneath because the wing is now cut inside, perhaps. So it's not quite this track meet. And it's more simplified in terms of how much defensive responsibility Oberon is in charge of. In particular, most of it is going to be when you're in this mid-block where they drop into what is effectively a 4-5-1. And that's very simple for him to say, I'm covering that wide space. And that's the only one I have to really worry about, other than, of course, high pressing. But so it's mostly system to me.
But we've definitely seen differences to how Oberon plays in front of Marco Farfan, a really good defensive first left back, as opposed to Emma, who will get forward, who maybe is a little more slack in defence and requires a bit of a helping hand from Matt Hedges for the most part. Oberon definitely seems to react a little better to not having quite as much defensive responsibility put on him, and like you said, with the system last year, playing as a winger was almost like playing as a centre midfielder. You had to have the tactical nous going forward and back, which that's just not his game.
Do you think he's clearly better left than right because Farfan's over there on the left?
I don't know if that's the only reason, but he definitely seems to have a lot more success on the left.
Yeah.
And it may just be a case of he can cut in and free up his, shape up his body a little more.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which, Ariola, his last 2 goals have been off his left foot. He can seemingly do it all off both feet, so that's quite a luxury to have.
Yeah, Oberon definitely seems better when he's on that diagonal slash between the center back and the outside back onto his right foot when he's coming from the left side than he does trying to do that on the right side where he doesn't really seem to execute that as well.
Yeah, I also wonder that in LA, if they targeted the same run on Chase Gasper all night, I wonder if that was something they'd identified through...
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Through video, or if that's something that, Oberon instinctively makes that run and like, oh, okay, we're going to do that again.
Yeah. Well, that was nice. I'm doing that 50 times. Yeah.
Yeah. I clipped it in the video. At least 5 times I did it.
All right, so not to jump too far ahead, Buzz, who starts in that position? Is it Hader or Velasco?
Well, that's going to be something we're going to be learning about this coach. We're going to learn. I was surprised, for example, that Brandon Cervania did not retain his starting spot very quickly. That Siki kept it for an extra game, and then Brandon was rotated back in. So has O'Brien done enough in the coach's eyes to keep that spot? Or is Velasco so valuable and so important and worth so much money that he's in automatically no matter what? I think tactics will play a part of the discussion in terms of like what the matchup is. I think that in a way, Cervania, he may not have regained his spot as quickly because his benching was over a mental thing, a game thing, and not just the fact that you had COVID exposure. So it's hard to punish somebody for that. But it'll also tell us a little bit about how this coach looks at injuries. Like when you're coming back from injury, how quickly do you regain your spot? So, it's still so early in this coach's career with FC Dallas, not overall, that we don't really know. So my assumption is that based on how much money Velasco cost, that he's going to be back in there. You are playing Minnesota United, who's I don't know enough about their defense. I feel like their defense is fairly athletic, so I'm not sure that O'Brien would be as effective against that team. So
All right.
It's a good question. I'm gonna say Velasco will be back in there.
Okay. Now, do you mind if we interrupt this podcast and insert some speculation?
Oh, I love speculation. Go ahead.
Always.
Have either one of you taken a moment to consider is it just purely coincidental that your big-time star Argentinian 19-year-old ends up on the health and safety protocol on the heels of his I Miss My Friends social media post?
That's a little far for me.
Okay.
I like your theory. I like the fun of it. I think that's a little far. At least, man, I hope not.
We had a dude. I just want to remind you, we had a dude leave in the middle of the night on a plane to Turkey at one time. This is not a far stretch, Buzz Carrick.
Yeah. No, he did tweet out a thing about like a face mask emoji and like a cry.
He's deleted that since too.
Yeah, he did delete it. Yeah, so they may have told him to kibosh that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a woof, man. I really hope it's not. Yeah.
I didn't mean. Did I stir the water too hard?
It certainly makes me worry that I think that there's no way, but then like the worries of that are like, oh my gosh, that's some high level shenanigans to fake, if you will, a COVID protocol just because he wants to go home or something. That's golly. I hope that's not what's happening.
Here's the problem: you fake a COVID protocol and you're stuck at home for a week.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, not a lot he can... Unless someone's coming to him, then it's going to be pretty bored.
Any chance he went home to Argentina this week, actually?
Yeah.
went for a visit? I don't know.
He certainly would not be the first person to break protocol when they were supposed to be isolated on this
club.
Look,
again, this is the special speculation portion of the podcast. Yeah. I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just speculating and asking the question at all. The timing of it seems a little weird. It's not like we've seen Mr. Velasco over the course of the last 7 to 10 days. So I just, hey, let's put him on the list and maybe he could secretly fly down to Argentina, go see mommy and come back all fresh and new. Maybe. I don't know. Just I've not heard anything. I just made it up in my head. I don't know. I'm not saying this is true. I am speculating. Well, hey, look, if he comes back and he hits a couple of bangers and plays well, will any of us care?
Right. Good point.
Again, I am not saying any of that is true. It was all made up by me.
Pure speculation.
And pure speculation.
That doesn't matter. Tomorrow there's going to be a thing people say in there where on the podcast we said that Velasco faked the whole thing. You know how that still works.
I'm sure it'll show up I'm sure it'll show up in another website tomorrow.
Yeah. Big soccer.
Anyway, this speculation was brought to you by Soccer 90.
Yeah.
America's soccer store.
Yeah. Favorite soccer store. Yeah.
Since 2019 or 18.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing about the LA game is not only the great spirit the team played with, but I was really impressed with the defensive organization of the team. It was, the team's been good defensively all season long, but there was something, I don't know, maybe it was the camera angle, maybe it was the way LA was playing. I really was impressed with the defensive organization in that game.
Yeah, I actually thought that was potentially that might have been Facundo's best game. I thought he was really good. Yeah, which is a bummer because, I'm all in on the Edmund train, but man, Facundo was good. And when you combine him with Hedges, who's, of course, back in phenomenal form and healthy, and you put Tafari's a little bit more range and quickness and ability to cover ground. It's
and improve passing.
Improve passing. It's just like it's. And Imam Tuamasi's coming on. I'm with you. It's like that was one of the best defensive. Plus when you go up, well, number one, you're playing a mid to low block anyway, which gives you a lot of defensive rigidity and stability. And then you go out and counter break a couple of goals. Well, now you can really get defensive and sit on the game and kill it. So this is it was a prototypical example, like a textbook example of how Nico wants to kill a game on the road and kill the other team on the road and stifle their opportunities and counterattack. That's what I mean about that game being a Pareja style road kill. I mean, it would give me so much vibes throwback to that. Now, they don't do that all the time, of course. We talked about that. Vancouver, they didn't do that. But, it was a phenomenal performance. And honestly, I thought it legitimately might have been Facundo's best game since he's come to Dallas.
All right, that's a good segue because I wanted to mention this because we were talking about this in our chat group, and Dan, you had some insight into this, is to and again, let's take away what happened at the end of last night's game and set it aside for a moment. Had Cerrillo done something or performed in a manner that caused him to lose that gig? Because we've seen Faco, we thought he was just the road guy, but we saw him start at home against Seattle, I think it was, and kind of hold that position. And my question, Dan, that I think you have an answer to was, was it just Faco playing well, or had Cerrillo done something that kind of unsettled the coach?
It was just Faco had been, as Nico put it, in a good moment. I asked him after the Seattle game and used that exact phrase. Hey, you've had Facu on the road and Edwin at home. Is this just a case of protecting the ball on the road and getting forward at home, or is there something more to it? And he said, no, it's just, Facu's in a good moment. They want to keep that consistency. They don't want to just chop and change for the sake of it. So it definitely paid off. 30 pressures is insane. 8 blocks, 6 clearances. Worked really well having him sitting in front of the 2 centre backs playing zonally. He had, I don't know if he had to check Chicharito before the flight to Vancouver, if he left him in LA, but either way, he had to empty his pockets of him.
It was a great performance. Buzz, was that the best performance by this team all season so far? The LA game, 3-1 win?
It depends on what you're looking for. It certainly was the most decisive win against a really, really good team on their court. It's the biggest statement win of the season. I think there are games they've actually played collectively better, because I wouldn't necessarily claim that sitting deep and stifling the game and counterattacking is actually playing well. It is a game plan, and they executed it to perfection. They stuffed the Galaxy, but they've had games they've certainly played better, I think. I'm pressed to tell you exactly which one, but I definitely don't think that the performance in LA is a quality display of high-level soccer. It's a quality display of. You remember with the Dallas Cup when I talked about that idea of like, what a great coaching that they had this game plan. They went out and they executed and they won, and the other coach was like, well, no one on the team's any good. Well, who cares? They won. And this is like that. You might argue that in some ways the Galaxy played a better game, but they didn't win because Dallas had a much better game plan and they stomped them. So it's the biggest statement win of the year.
Okay. Well, then that probably makes what happened last night in Vancouver all the worse.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. It is because remember, like I always say, Oscar used to tell me, sometimes you got to throw out the goals. So if you look at just the way they played, Dallas played better in Vancouver. They had almost 60% possession. They outshot the other team. They were they collectively played better soccer. Vancouver does not really play very good soccer. They kind of thug it up and thump it, right? So like the performance across the board in Vancouver by the team in terms of playing soccer is better, but they lost because they did not execute the game plan. They made a couple of last-second mental breakdowns that cost them, So, playing better doesn't always mean you win. That's one of the things about soccer. So.
All right, yeah. So, see, I don't know if I would agree with you on any of this because I actually thought Dallas played really well in LA, given the way LA was giving them. They took what LA gave them and made some really magic moments out of it with some sharp, direct, one-touch passing. I mean, some of those goals in LA were some of the nicest goals we've seen out of this team in a long time. Because they just tore LA apart, who weren't playing very well. But then they go to Vancouver, and Vancouver is not a good soccer team. But Vancouver appeared, and their very funny Italian coach, by the way, who is hilarious to watch on the sideline. Is there another guy in the league who looks less like a soccer coach than that dude?
My wife said it's like a basketball coach.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Vancouver almost figured out a way to just kind of sit in the middle of the field and keep Dallas from doing anything.
Yeah, that's the way Sporting plays too. Yeah, that's in the middle.
Yeah, and so when you say Dallas played well because they had all this possession, man, Buzz, I'm telling you, I guarantee you if I go look at a passing chart, 85% of that is back and forth, just waiting patiently to try to figure out where they could poke a hole in it, and they weren't very good at that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I thought you were done. No, I actually think they played pretty well. I thought Areola, in particular, his movement was phenomenal. He and Jesus were often on the same page and doing good things. I really just thought the Vancouver performance was actually really good. I thought they controlled most of that game. They just didn't have...
But they controlled it because Vancouver let them control it.
Yeah, Vancouver always lets everybody control it. Vancouver doesn't want the ball. They never want the ball. Everybody that goes against them has a higher level of possession. But Dallas played really well and created a lot of shots. The only thing they were missing, relatively speaking, is the clinical finishing. Like how many times this season we talked about this, that Dallas is finishing at a really, really good rate. And I've always had a relatively known number of shots. And you've brought up multiple times what happens when they stop finishing at the clinical rate. Well, you saw it in Vancouver. That doesn't mean that like 80% of the game they weren't playing really well and playing better. It comes down to the idea, like if you have 3 shots and 3 goals and only counterattack, did you play better? Or did you play better when you had 60% possession, never let the other team have the ball, execute your plan, and created 12 shots and only had 1 goal? Like, which one did you play better? You didn't shoot better in the second one, but you probably played better. So it just depends on how you define what play better means. And that comes down to, like, what's the most important to you? Winning? Like, if you won and you think scoring 3 goals on 3 shots is great soccer, then LA game is way better. But I don't think it. I think it's a worse performance, but it's a better of soccer, but it's a better execution of a game plan and a win. And that's what matters, is the win.
Dan, where's your head on all this?
I certainly, I enjoyed the LA game. It wasn't bunker ball or anything boring by any stretch of the imagination. There was definitely a level of frustration watching the Vancouver game. I saw the heat map at halftime was just a ring, a semicircle around the center circle, just where they were trying to kind of break into the midfield but couldn't. Vancouver certainly dominated possession in the Dallas half, and it wasn't a very clean performance. It was kind of, they got what they were allowed, and they didn't really take advantage of what they were allowed to do.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, for the 12 shots and that, they weren't the best of opportunities. I think half of them were outside the box. A third of them were sort of 30 yards out, weren't going to harm anything. Nothing was really like dead center in the box, as they've kind of, like LA, everything was hovering around the penalty spot, it seemed. Whereas Vancouver is kind of, well, let's try and edge something in from distance or from a tight angle.
Yeah, one of the real things that jumps out at you when you compare the two games is that against the Galaxy, all but one of the Dallas shots came inside the penalty box. And Vancouver is kind of the old school Lucci style, where like half the shots came from outside the box. So they didn't do as good a job in the Vancouver game about carrying the play all the way in and getting those good clinical opportunities they had been getting. So that's a deficiency. So it's just a question of how you define a quality play, basically.
Okay, so I guess the big overriding question is, should Dallas fans, look, if I had told you that Dallas was going to get 3 points out of these two games, you would have went, okay, that makes sense. They'll lose in L.A. and they'll win in Vancouver. But after winning in L.A. and the way that they won in L.A., do fans have a right to be disappointed in how everything turned out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can absolutely be disappointed in those two goals that they allowed. The first one, they didn't get out. Nanu didn't get out on the crosser. He was lazy getting that back out there, and the guy just was able to make a nice casual cross back into the middle. Tafari got beat by a shorter guy to get into the ball. Granted, this guy's pretty good in the air. And then the second goal is one of the great Jimmy Maurer flubs we've ever seen. He's usually so reliable. And then Edwin makes what amounts to basically kind of a rookie kind of mistake by over pursuing instead of just standing the guy up because he was already going away from goal. All you got to do is not let him turn, and the game's over. So absolutely 100% be disappointed, because the thing that Dallas does best this year is the defensive cohesion and denying the other team opportunities. And that broke down 5 minutes left in the game for the first time in a long time. Now, granted, the thing that one of my three takeaways from the game was the fact that, think about what a mental change that is from a fan watching perspective from a year ago. A year ago, we thought that Dallas never had any shot at all on the road. Road was just a loss for sure. Chalk it up before they even go. And now they're winning games, and you're pissed that they didn't win a game on the road. Right, that they didn't win both of them. Mm-hmm. That's a complete reversal. I mean, it's like a team that's taking care of its business at home, and in every road game they got a chance to win it or tie it. That's remarkable. That's a sign of a very, very good team. And so that's a reason to be excited, and it's a reason to be mad that they tossed it out the window at the last second against Vancouver, who they outplayed other than that.
Yeah, it's also only the second time this season they've given up 2 goals in a game.
Yeah.
Do you realize that? Kansas City, the draw in Kansas City being the other one.
I hadn't thought of that, but they'd only given up 8 goals on the year before that game total.
Yeah, they're at 10
in
now.
12 games. So, yeah, I mean, in every way, everything that's good about the way this club plays fell apart at the very end of a game. That's what should bother you. That's what should be annoying. And while it's not a worrying sign because it is on the road and it is a long road trip to LA and then up to Vancouver. I mean, that's as tough as it gets in terms of road trips in MLS. So in terms of the distance anyway.
And doing it without 3 key starters, which is something we started with, but I guess the question is how different does that game in Vancouver go if they have Velasco or if they have Paz or if they have Martinez?
Yeah. Yeah, when both goals there were keeper mistakes, and you've got to look at Paz there.
So you think Jimmy played a part in the first goal too, Dan?
Yeah, he got beat at the front post. He also got both hands to it and palmed it in. I mean, it's that anytime a keeper gets beat at the near post, you have to put the spotlight on them. There was a massive defensive breakdown, but he's got a big part of it in it.
Yeah, remember Jimmy's weakness is side-to-side quickness. That was where compare him to Jesse Gonzalez, who was a massive shot stopper and side-to-side quickness, but a poor game reader and decision maker. Jimmy was the opposite. Jimmy was a great game reader and decision maker, but lacked some of that pure athleticism getting post to post. And that's one of those cases where Paz is more like Jesse Gonzalez in terms of his ability to get post to post. He makes dramatic saves going down into either side. Big difference.
It's unfortunate for Jimmy because he's been a great servant to the club, and I'm sure he'll have great games for the club again.
And he made a really good save at one point in that game against Vancouver too, by the way, that we haven't. There was one really good save that I think that's what kept it 1-0 at that point.
And honestly, Vancouver shooting from kickoff, you see keepers get caught out by that sort of thing because they just don't expect it.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was dialed in then. It's unfortunate, he's not, he's played 3 games this year. 2 of them he's made a couple of errors of judgment in. The cup game, kind of that weird not knowing whether to go to ground or to kick the ball away, and then kind of doing both, kicking it off of Cerrillo's head and not being able to get up in time to watch the goal, and then calling that header wide off the that front post header wide, and then it just nestles inside the back post nicely. And then the having a hand in the 2 against Vancouver. But I mean, unfortunately, that's the stuff that you can't do a keeper drill in training for about. You've got to have game time to keep on that, and MLS doesn't really present a way for goalkeepers to keep those reps up.
So let's talk about that second goal scenario, because that was the weirdest thing. What do you think? What was Jimmy trying to do?
Prevent the corner.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying to, as he was sliding out of bounds, he was trying to keep the ball in bounds and keep his hand on it, and he just failed to do that.
Because it almost looks like he goes to ground, and he almost like he palms it away from himself instead of just putting his hand on top of it and stopping it. That's where I got confused by what he was trying to do.
All I can think is he didn't realize that although he was going back, his arms were comfortably over the line, and he wasn't about to pull the ball out for a corner.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a mess. I mean, just give up the corner in that case.
Well, and the funny thing is that because of that scenario, the substitution that was getting ready to happen doesn't happen until after the goal takes place. And if they had gotten to the corner, then they would have been able to make the substitution they made after the goal took place.
Who did they bring in there? I don't remember.
It was Facu and Quiones was already in the game. It was whoever came on with Facu at the end of the game.
Yeah,
am I right about that?
I was thinking I'd like to see Facu earlier. Yeah,
I'm a believer that you don't make a substitution while you're defending a corner, so I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Oh, Facu didn't come in.
No, he didn't. What was that sub? I'm thinking of this wrong. Where is the goal?
Quinones came in at 83 for Hedges right before the goal.
I thought there was a sub that came on after that. I thought there was somebody trying to sub in.
There was 2 subs after the first goal. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Quinones was the last substitution.
Siki and Farah and Hara.
And Hara came on. Yeah.
After the first goal. Yeah.
All right. Well, then maybe I'm thinking of it incorrectly. All right. Yeah. Well, anyway, it was a weird moment for Jimmy, and you could tell he was pretty self-beat. I didn't know. Were there any comments from him, or did anybody get to ask him questions after the game, Dan?
No.
They didn't make him available?
It's funny. They made him available after that Kansas City Cup game, and, he naturally was very pissed off. That was a silly idea to put him up in front of the 2 or 3 of us after that. I'm glad they kind of didn't repeat that trick. But no idea. I mean, I'm sure he was mad about the result and his input in it.
All right. So Dallas goes on the road. They get a great win in LA against the Galaxy, 3-1. That actually vaulted them to the top of the standings. But last night, between losing in Vancouver, the last place team in the Western Conference, and the continued not resurgence, but surgence of Austin FC, who had a impressive win last night.
Oh, yeah.
Now they are at the top of the table, pushing Dallas down into 3rd place behind LAFC. Is that what it is? Yeah. I know everybody hates this, but I continue to believe, and Buzz, I don't know if you were the original person that said this or we all agreed to it. The best thing that has happened to Houston and Dallas is Austin.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Especially now that they are proving themselves legitimate on the field as well. Because to go to that place in LA and pull off that win, that's no small bean. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, they've been a lot of their early results were not against very good teams, and they were running up a lot of goals. But then they had a good win against Minnesota, and this is a really good win. So they're really starting to have some belief down there. But even more than on the field, Peter, that references to off the field, because I don't think there's any. I mean, I don't know if FC Dallas will ever admit this, or Dan Hunt will admit this, but I think there's no question that the change that happened, and it is clearly a change. And it's so much clearly a change that Dan Hunt even asked me if I had noticed. I was like, "Are you kidding? Of course we've noticed." Yeah. You know, it's clearly has happened, and I think it's 100% because of what Austin has done in the stands. And if you've paid attention to what Houston's done with their new owner and their willingness to now spend and do things differently and bring in DPs and stuff, they clearly are also responding. So forget about the stand reaction; it's the off-field business and butts in seats reaction that really is the most telling impact. And I totally still think that the thing that's going to turn around Dallas and Houston is somebody showing them that it could actually be done in Texas. And for that, I will always be thankful that Austin came in. If it turns this club into a sold out 22,000 seater every week, that's going to be great.
Yes, 100% agree. All right, so they, you get the good, you get the bad. Dallas gets 3 points on the road. They are now in third place. Coming up this weekend on a Sunday game is Minnesota United, and the Loons are coming to town. Buzz, anything we need to know specifically in advance of that game, which, by the way, starts at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, well, we haven't seen the team train in a couple of weeks, unfortunately. The biggest question is, are the big three guys that have been out, are they going to be back? Based on what we normally know about how long you quarantine, those three guys should be available for this weekend's game. Should, maybe, probably. So don't write it in stone, but you should have them back. The big one, obviously, is Paz. The questions are going to be, has Tafari played well enough to keep his spot? I think he has, but we'll see. Has O'Brien played well enough to keep his spot? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how it's going. I think actually Velasco will get his spot back because of the way Minnesota plays. I think O'Brien will be less effective against them. But really, that's it. The closest battle is Edwin and Facu, but Facu probably has earned the start. To me, Tuamasi is holding down right back. Nano did nothing to make me think that I want to see him over Tuamasi anymore. The Paxton looked a little tired last game. Hopefully they got him out early enough.
Injury updates on Farfan and Hedges. Do we know?
I don't have anything on that, but hopefully they're okay.
Farfan, nothing. Hedges, he just had some tightness from playing on turf.
I'm sure it'll be fine. The big question is
his calves and hamstrings were just playing up, and they didn't want to risk it.
The way Siki's been playing and the way Brandon looked pretty good, would you sit Paxton for a game based on how tired he looked when he came out of the Vancouver game? And I'd be tempted to. I'd be tempted to sit Paxton for a game.
No. But I'm being selfish.
Yeah, I thought.
Look, I'm impressed by Nsebeling. He has turned out to be a better player. I don't know if he's clearly got something. Yeah. He's a rookie, and he's better than anybody had any right to expect, but he's not Paxton Pomykal.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Like a week and a half ago, Paxton had the best game I said since 2019. And then against Vancouver, he looked tired and worn out, and I thought he was terrible. So it's like I'm not saying that Siki was any better. I'm just saying based on how gassed Paxton was, I'd be tempted to start Siki and Brandon for a game and let Paxton have a game off. You cannot have Paxton start 34 games. He needs to start 26, 27 maybe. That's it. So you got to get him a game off, and Thomas isn't ready apparently. So this would be a good one for me to put in Siki and Cervania at home against a team that's a relatively athletic team and not a super, dribbly kind of team. Other than they have the one guy, but Facu's going to be on that dude. I can't remember his name. And they play fairly vertical other than that one guy. So, it's I'm okay with having Siki's energy in there for a game and letting Paxton have a game off. That's what I would do, but I'm not in charge. So.
I was a bit disappointed to see them bitching about the field in Vancouver last night, because if anybody should not be talking about field conditions, it's Dallas, considering, look, I realize it's a bad set of circumstances and not about bad field management on anybody's part at the club. It just is the seasons and how things have gone down. But the field in Dallas has been a talking point all season long, and I distinctly remember it playing to their advantage on one particular goal, I think against Seattle. So I just found it a little weird that maybe Dallas had the sack to mention the field, in no matter how bad it is, up in Vancouver.
It's difficult because one's by circumstance and the other's by design.
Yeah, on a side note, this is the last home game before they resod Toyota Stadium.
Oh, is
they
it?
Because they're out of the Open Cup. They have the international break coming up. So this is the last home game. They're on the road next weekend at Orlando. So after this game, and after whenever the Hall of Fame concert is that before that or after that, whatever. After that concert's over, that's when they're going to do it. They're going to replace all the sod to the summer grass.
Concert's on Saturday.
Yeah, there you go. So they have. So after the game on Sunday, so probably Monday, or maybe even after the game Sunday night, they should start tearing it out, because you basically have 4 weeks until the next game, which is on the 18th of June, right, against Vancouver. So that's when the turnover is happening on that turf.
That's more turnaround time than they had in preseason, honestly.
Yeah, it should be all. The problem should be gone. It should be all growing in on the summer grass. Should be good next time you see it.
Well, this was about the time we all used to get to do the media game on the field, because it was right before they tore the thing out.
Yeah.
But they don't do that anymore.
Well, that only happened once in the last, 7 years?
Was that the first ever media game, Peter? The one like 2 years ago? Or the first ever media game back in
I
like
thought they had done it
96?
more than that, but maybe
Or the first ever media game in 2002, or the first ever media game in
Well, they used to
2008?
do it. They used to do it every year in the Cotton Bowl.
I know. We just joked about the idea when the one we played in at Toyota like 3 years ago was the first ever media game. Remember?
Yes, they kept calling
and we're
it
like,
that. Yes,
we've been doing this
We've
since
been doing-
'96. Like, what are
Yes.
you talking about?
All right, I do want to interrupt this podcast with another special segment.
no.
I want to play a game. I want to call this referee kit assignment.
All
right.
Yeah.
So let's have this conversation, because this was driving me fucking bonkers all game long. Now, maybe it's because of the way the cameras are calibrated and it's not as bad in person as it appears on television. But if you're the assigner, the kit assigner for this league, and you've got a home team wearing white and white shirts with blue shorts with various sundry shades of blue in the shirt, versus a team wearing red with navy blue shorts, you have the option of your referee wearing navy blue, light blue, lime green, or orange. Which one do you pick? Buzz, you go first.
I guess I would go lime green, but then the keeper was kind of a limeish green.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct answer, Buzz.
Yeah.
Dan, who do you pick? What color would you pick?
Lime green.
Correct. That is the correct answer. But what did the stupid assigner pick? Orange. Now, I know that orange and red are different colors, but when you're wearing an orange shirt and black shorts and one of the teams is wearing red shirts and navy blue shorts, that is a poor that is a poor execution of that particular assigner's job, and I'm very upset about
I
it.
would have assigned a yellow referee jersey that they don't have.
They don't have it this time.
That's
Yes.
why. That's what I was like. Where are they? We're in the yellow one. Oh, they don't have a
Well,
yellow
we
one.
we should celebrate the fact that they did introduce a fourth color this year. Remember, last year we kept getting nuts over the fact that the referee was wearing one of the two keepers' jersey colors, because all they had last year was green, light blue, and orange, which was essentially the three keeper colored jersey colors.
I mean,
They've
light blue
introduced-
would have been okay.
They added navy this year. What, Dan?
Didn't they have purple at one point?
I don't
I don't think so.
No, it's a navy blue this year. I don't remember a purple. I'm talking about last year. When Capelli became the referee kit supplier last year, they only gave them three kit colors, and there was constant conflict between the referee and the goalkeepers. And they added the navy blue to help with that this year.
Yeah, they need the yellow.
The thing that drives me nuts is soccer as a sport is so against teams having a primary black jersey, because that's traditionally the referee's color.
Yeah.
And then the manufacturers are like, we're going to do every color but that.
But black, right, exactly.
The
All
big
right.
kit miss on this game was not having Dallas in white shorts.
Agreed. But I felt like this was the knit I could pick that was at least not the same thing we always pick on, which is white shorts. All right. Now back to regular podcast programming. Minnesota does come to town, 6 p.m. On Sunday. Get your tickets, go to the game, etc., etc. The other big news of the week, guys, was the biannual salary dump, where we're all reminded that Frank O'Hara makes way too much money, and we marvel at how much money Jesus is making. That just number blows me away. Not that he doesn't earn it, hasn't earned it or deserved it. It's just
every penny,
fascinating to see a homegrown make almost $2 million a year. It's a pretty wonderful thing. Dan, you got any particular thoughts or notes of the salary dump, whether it relates to Dallas or any other team?
I mean, I was looking through it, and the first thing that struck me was, what's more crazy that when you have people like El Jefe talking about how the salary cap used to be, that there's now 91 players in the league making over $1 million a year, or that 4 of those play for FC Dallas.
Yeah, that really caught me off guard. I was not prepared to see a season where Dan Hunt had paid 4 guys over $1 million, because it literally, how many years did we go without them paying one person $1 million?
Remember that it would come out, the early release would come out, and someone's got their compensation to be $1 million. You're like, oh, they're getting sold in the summer.
Well, I mean, but how many years did we go before we even got to that part, Dan? I mean, we literally went almost 2 decades, right, Buzz?
Yeah.
I mean, who was the first $1 million salary for this club?
Oh,
was it Morrow?
Diaz? Yeah, it might be him. I remember he was at his first year. He was like at 900 something. I think that was the first guy that went over. I mean, I remember there were guys that eventually became, like, the guys that were the peak level players, like the superstar level players, were making, a couple $100,000, and that was like a lot. And now that's like an underpaid guy,
Yeah.
I mean, the most dramatic, if you want to talk about the changes, the most dramatic thing now is that the bottom tier, the 10th guy on the supplemental roster, makes a minimum of $65K now. When they invented that roster, that 10-man supplemental roster, the top guys were $2,400 $24,000 for the whole year, and the bottom guys were $1,200 for the whole year, and now it's $65,000 for the whole year. So it's like, can you imagine $12,000 for the year, and that's $1,000 a month. Those guys all had secondary jobs, and now the minimum paid guy makes more than most people. That's a massive change.
Yeah, the league has come a long way, and the one thing that I dug out, well, first off, seeing Dallas in the top 10 in total salary, I thought was pretty mind-blowing as well. It's amazing what happens when you actually sell somebody and you make $30 million in sales. That helps the deal. That's what it's been all along. We'll spend money when we've made some money.
Yeah, it's back to the at the end of the Oscar period where there were like 7 guys that are DPs, and they buy 5 of them down underneath the DP level. So
the other thing that I dug out was the fact that, and I know, it's just the amazing inefficiency of spending in Major League Soccer, because the top 5 salary earners in this league, if you were to look up their rank of performance, for who scored in their average game ranking, Pozuelo for New England is the 4th highest earner at $4.7 million, and he's 21st in the league in game average ranking. Shaqiri is number 1 at $8.1 million, the most ever for an MLS player. He's 88th. Higuain is 3rd. Chicharito's 2nd with $6 million. He's 81st average game ranking, performance ranking. Higuain in Miami, $5.8 million. He's 280th in average game performance ranking, and Josie Altidore is number 5 at $4.3 million, and he is 355th in terms of average game performance ranking, according to WhoScored.com.
Couldn't believe New England took that guy. I was like, you're out of your mind.
And I literally could have continued down that list about the top 15 before you really began to equal out salary versus average performance. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I bet Jesus and Areola both have really good value for their prices.
They do. They do.
And Hedges?
Franco Hara, not so much.
Not so much. You have to just look at Franco as a sunk cost. You have to understand that they screwed up. They threw $10 million down a hole and just forget it. And just only look at his value to the roster as it is, because you're paying it anyway.
He's a well-paid coach.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Very good.
Fortunately, with Hara, the important number is the same as it is with all DPs. That's $612,500, whatever is the cap hit.
Yeah.
Hey, totally unrelated news subject. Have either one of you taken notice of the social media campaign that Real Salt Lake has been putting out over the last few weeks about their fan base and the atmosphere at their games?
It's good. Yeah.
It's really, really good, and I'm really interested to know the genesis of that and who specifically is behind that campaign, because it's not an expensive campaign and it appears to be limited to social media, but it certainly is giving me the impression that going to a Real Salt Lake game is a really amazing experience.
Presumably it's the Deloy Hansen recovery effort.
It's because they've yeah. Okay.
Are they still owned by the league, or do they find? Oh, they have a new owner.
No, they have a new owner. Yeah. Well, it's if you haven't caught it yet because you don't happen to follow them in any way, just go check out their Twitter account and watch some of those videos. It's very connective to the community and really shows off quite a scene happening in Salt Lake. And clearly that's an organization that's been going through a lot of turmoil with the previous owner and trying to find a new owner and all of that. But it looks like they've pulled out of it quite nicely. So good for them.
Yeah, it's a good campaign.
It is a very nice campaign. By the way, I heard from a sneak that in the discussions about the thing on the stage, that next year it will have flames.
Yes. Hopefully it comes out of the noses of the bull.
Well, if it doesn't come out of the mouth or nose of the bull, it is a failure. As a shout out to the old Dallas Burn electric legged flame vomiting horse. But my next question is, why is it going to take all this time? What does it take to get flames to go? Did you see that? Did you see the goal celebration scene in Vancouver last night with the smoke machines all the way around the stadium? That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. With the blue lights under them as well. Yeah.
Yes, that looks super cool.
Do you guys know the movie Megamind? It's a cartoon with Will Ferrell playing Megamind.
I am familiar. Yes, I am familiar.
Love that movie. The thing I think of is the climactic scene in the movie when he says, the difference between you and me is, and he says the answer is presentation, and the big giant fan of lasers goes down and goes like, that's what I want, is the big giant fan of red lasers to come down behind the bull. That's what I want.
Yeah, I want lasers so bad.
Yeah.
It's got to be a laser show.
Yep, I'm in.
I'm telling you. Oh, and by the way, apparently the drone show was such a hit. They are going to have another drone show later this season. Well, hold on. Here's my Huntsman dump.
Yeah.
The word on the street is that it's after the LA game, and it will be twice the drones.
What game's the LA game? Is that
I don't know.
End of June?
Look, this is all deep throat stuff, man. I'm only getting little bits and pieces. Just take what I give you and be happy about it, Buzz.
I want to know if I can go. I want to see it.
I don't know. Maybe I just block off both those LA games.
I wish I could do that.
For anyone that's just started listening to the podcast in the last 10 seconds, sorry.
Yeah.
Why? Okay, where in podcasting world does somebody fast forward to an hour and 6 minutes?
I don't know. Spotify does some crazy things sometimes.
Yeah.
I get in my car and it's just been going off, and it's just been playing. I finally click on to my Bluetooth, and it's like, I wasn't even on this episode. What's going on?
Okay. Anything else, mates?
North Texas is pretty good. You should go watch them play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's some. The academy season's almost over. The U19s actually managed to win their way through a qualification tournament into the playoffs, which is great because they have not been very good this year because they're really, really young. Next year is going to be fun. So the season's almost over, and then sometime around August, there'll be a new set of teams, and there's actually a big rumor. I cannot confirm this yet, but there's a big rumor that Dallas is going to add an academy team. They're going to add a U16 team and field, because before they've gone from 15 to 17, so the 17 was kind of a big weed out stage because they would have twice as many players as they needed, really. So they're going to roll in a 16 team and be able to have a second team and find minutes for a lot of those guys and keep them around a little longer. So I think that's really good development if it turns out to be true, but it's a pretty strong rumor, so I'm pretty confident it'll be happening.
All right, and it's time now for our weekly FC Dallas Youth Academy Julian Eyestone
update, yeah.
height update.
Yeah.
Julian, at the age of 15, is now 6'5.5", I've heard.
Yeah.
So still growing like a tree. So
Yeah,
good
he's
for
gonna
Julian.
he's gonna peak out at 6'6" sometime in the next year or so. That'll be his height.
Oh, you think
6'6".
he stops at 6'6"?
Yeah, he's definitely gonna. He's almost finished growing.
Really?
So he'll be
Liverpool
6'6".
for this?
I was rooting for 6'9".
No, he's
Okay,
not
what
gonna
glove
get it.
size?
Yeah.
That's the real question.
Did you see that highlight clip that he posted today or yesterday, whatever it was, when he has a couple of PKs? And
No.
he stands and he stops a couple of PKs. And you should watch it if you care about player development, because he stands in the goal with his arms extended and his hair is pretty much brushing the crossbar and his arms are reaching out to like a foot from either pole. And I'm like, you can just imagine standing there like lining up a PK and go, where the hell am I supposed to kick this thing? Because he's covering the whole damn goal just standing there. It's friggin' awesome. Yeah.
It's like a giant palm tree as a goalkeeper. It's fascinating.
Yeah, you should have seen the scouts following that kid around the Dallas Cup. He wasn't even playing. They were just following him around. It's hysterical.
Well, there you go. There's your now weekly Julian Einstone height update on the podcast. All right, Dan. Well, thank you, Dan. It was very brave of you to come out of mourning on the heels of missing out on joining the Premier League to do the podcast this week. The pod listener really owes you a real debt of gratitude.
Appreciate that strange, kind. Yeah, thank you.
Better luck next season, my friend.
I hope so. Actually, you know what? Maybe there's another cup game happening. The Denton Diablos and Fort Worth Vaqueros this week, and I don't have a horse in the race. So whoever wins, I'm okay with that. So maybe I can celebrate that instead of the playoffs.
There you go.
All right. See, that's a very positive attitude, Dan. That's what I like about you, sir. Buzz, thank you very much for your time and energy and thoughts and leadership.
You're welcome. Can I take a moment, however, and just contemplate for a second what it would be like to have Ricardo Pepi and Jesus Ferrer in a two-striker system together?
Well, maybe he gets loaned back.
Or maybe the U.S. will do it. I mean, they won't, but that would be so much fun.
No, maybe because they're Bundesliga off season, they'll let him come play here for a little bit.
Maybe? No.
No, probably not.
So it costs too much money.
Man, I already done the speculation segment. Buzz,
Did they get unrelegated? They got they did not.
Yeah, they did not get relegated. No,
Good for Pepi. They need to buy some damn midfielders to pass them the ball.
Yeah, they need a lot of things.
Dude,
That's for sure.
that's the first thing we said when we went there. When he went there, was like, if they pass him the ball, he'll be fine. But they don't, because they don't have anybody that can serve the ball. So,
Well, I don't think we had
Yeah.
playing him as a right wing in our bingo card either.
well, that's what Lucci did when he wasn't working as a 9.
Is Shellis the coach there?
Yeah.
All
Kenny
right.
Cooper's on the other wing.
This is Eddie Middlebrook again, reminding you that Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Friday, May 20th, America's strikers Ricardo Pepi and Jesus Ferrer will be in store signing autographs from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Stop in, shop for some fresh FC Dallas USA gear, and leave with Pepi and Ferrer's autograph. And remember, when you shop soccer90.com as a listener of Third Degree, you receive 20% off your order when you use the promo code Third Degree.
Dan, Buzz, thank you very much. again. All right. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fan. Hope you survived the emotional range of this week, and we will speak to you next week, hopefully after a win, on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Choose Jesus and Pepe.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.